Do you worry that every little thing can lead to your death? We're going to talk about anxiety and OCD and the fear of death. Stay tuned. That's what's up next. Hi, my name is Natasha Daniels. I'm a therapist and make videos for people with anxiety or OCD. And today I want to talk to you about something that actually impacts people with anxiety and OCD, and that is the fear of death. There's one thing that we know absolutely for certain in this life, and that is we're all going to die. That's not rocket science. That's just the truth. We're born and we die. And anxiety and OCD doesn't like uncertainty. Anxiety and OCD doesn't like to anticipate something bad. And anxiety and OCD lie to us and tell us that we have control over things that we do not have control. And sometimes that theme and that fear is death. And anxiety or OCD could be either one. Will whisper and say, if you're really careful and if you just do what I say, then you're not going to die. But the reality is you don't have the power to predict, avoid, or deter death. We all take natural precautions. We're crossing a street, we look both ways, right? We do these things. But when it's anxiety, and especially when it's OCD, we are bossed around and told to avoid this, avoid that. Follow these rules, especially with OCD. You have all these regimented rules. If you just do this, if you wash your hands and you avoid that, or you eat in this particular way, or you say this magical thing, or you do this superstitious thing, you can avoid this bad thing from happening. And OCD will whisper, if you don't do it, then you're going to be responsible. Something bad's going to happen. And that could be the fear of someone that we love dying, or it could be the fear that we're going to die. But here's a spoiler alert. We don't get to control death. And I know that's a really scary thing, but it's also a reality. And when you recognize and realize that you have zero power to prevent death, that death will happen no matter what. Hopefully not soon. Hopefully you live a long, full life, but that we don't get to control that. I have seen people who are super healthy, super cautious, die. And I've seen people that are reckless and not healthy and not cautious live a very, very long life. Because when death happens, it happens. And you can't prevent it. And so what do you do with that? Because what I've noticed with the people that I have helped who are worried about death is that they are so consumed with the fear of dying and preventing their death that they really are not living. What kind of life do you have if you're stuck in a house doing compulsions day in and day out to prevent your death? Well, metaphorically, you've already died. You're not living your full life. You're stuck on a hamster wheel doing what OCD wants day in and day out. That's not living your full life. You're not enjoying life. You're living a life avoiding death and not living at all. And that is what anxiety and OCD can do. With anxiety, it's avoidance. It can be, I'm going to avoid this, I'm going to avoid that, I'm going to live in my little bubble, and I'm going to make sure that everything is perfect or everything is safe. With OCD's bossy. And so it might be follow these rules, do these, magical thinking compulsions, or take all of these safety behaviors. And I notice with people with OCD, you can have different themes. You could be fearful of catching, something and dying that way. So you're more consumed about germs and staying away from it. You might be worried about poisons and toxins. You might actually be worried about anaphylactic shock and allergies, whether you have allergies or not. That doesn't matter. OCD will hijack that and will, your allergy precautions are here. And then OCD will be like, nope, they're here. And you're not living a life. You're micromanaging everything you eat. You're micromanaging everything you do. You're micromanaging what can be contaminated. And you're not living life. You're not enjoying life. And so part of dealing with the fear of dying is actually moving towards acceptance. And I know nobody wants to do that, but it's moving towards acceptance of, I don't control this. This can happen at any time. Not to scare you, but to be realistic, right? Most of the time it doesn't happen, but it can happen. And do I have any control over that? Zero. Zero control. We all can take natural precautions, but anxiety and OCD never is at the norm, typical precaution. It's way over here, what other people are not doing. What are you missing out on because of your anxiety or OCD and your fear of dying? And what things can you tackle and say, I want to live my life. And I'm actually living a life of containment already because anxiety and OCD is saying, just live in this little tiny, tiny bubble, follow all my rules, and I'll keep you alive. But that's not living. That isn't a life. So when you accept that I have zero control over death and dying, none of my magical thinking, knocking twice or wearing a special shirt is keeping me alive, right? Because if that was true, we'd all figure that out and we'd all do it. None of that's keeping you alive. That's an OCD lie. And you following OCD rules, watching every little thing or washing every little thing or making sure things aren't contaminated, that's not living life. And it's not keeping you alive, because you can have a person with anxiety and OCD who avoids all the time or follows OCD compulsions and a person who doesn't, and guess what? They're both going to die. Neither one has better odds. They're both going to die. And so I invite you to think about this. I invite you to think about what anxiety and OCD is robbing from you and letting go and realizing that you have no control and moving towards acceptance so that you can get off the hamster wheel that anxiety and OCD have you on, and you can move towards the things that matter, the people that matter, the things that matter, things that light you up. And that will be living life. Well, I hope that you find the sparkle in everything you do, and I'll talk to you again next Thursday. Take care.